What's cracking? Brand new whip, new mansion.
Just hopped in.
Just hopped. Well, no, that's not how it goes.
Oh.
Thanks for coming to the.
Okay.
No, thanks for coming to the Dorm Room History Podcast. This week is we're sponsored. Someone gave us $1. This is the Orzo lunchbox.
So we do have a sponsor this week. So if you want to sponsor us, it costs $1.01.
Costs $1. We will not put links or anything. You got to pay more dollars for that.
We can tell. We can say his link.
We can. Well, I mean, we can say it. We can say it. We can be like, it's
Hold on.
Orzo.
His link is
But
orzobox.com.
Yeah, but I can't. I don't have time to write that down unless I have more money.
Okay, well,
You know what I'm saying?
Blake needs another quarter. If you want us to write that down.
But this is some good stuff right here.
Check it out. You can. It's like a lunchbox. You can fold in and out if you want.
Pop out the bottom real quick.
Pop
Hold
out
up.
at 1 a.m. if you want.
Pop out. Except for it works better than that, but you have to take the top off. Listen, man, you paid $1. What do you expect? All right. Well, that's sick. Well, listen. Clearly, everyone's looking at this like, okay, well, where's my This Week in History?
That's what everyone's been saying.
Clearly.
Because we're like 15 seconds in.
And they're like, they're about to freak out right now because there's no This Week in History yet. Don't worry. Guess what I'm about to do?
Are you going to do another sponsor?
No, I'm doing This Week in History.
Okay.
Yeah. So, first of all, big thing in history this week that I hope a lot of people already know, honestly, and that we don't really have to cover much. But tomorrow is the March 15th, which is also known as the Ides of March.
The Ides of March.
Which Caesar was told to beware the Ides of March.
Was.
Because that's the day 10,000 people stabbed him.
Yeah, just exactly that number.
Yeah. Not a great day to be him on that day. Usually, most days Caesar was alive was a great day to be Caesar.
It was a great day to be him.
Not that day was a great day.
Well, let me share this theory with you. It's kind of a deep cut, so don't take this as knowledge. But a lot of people think that Caesar actually wanted to be killed. He wanted to find a way out of the Republic. I would say it's like a minority still, but it still is a good amount. So when someone said, beware the Ides of March, Caesar, he was like, no.
I'm excited for the Ides of March.
Yeah, he couldn't wait for the Ides of March. Small theory. I don't know if I buy into it, but just to throw it out there.
Yeah.
Maybe even Caesar dying was still a good day to be Caesar.
maybe there was no bad day to be Caesar. All right, listen. Along with that,
I want to ask the tens of listeners really quick.
Oh, yeah.
Question.
Let's get a little Q&A going.
I had a debate with two of my very close friends the other day. And I said, what important thing happened in the year 1776, and they could not tell me.
Oh.
And when I told them what it was, they said, that's not common knowledge.
I think it is common knowledge.
Do you know what happened in 1776?
1776, dude, that's like July 4th where that came from.
The Declaration of Independence was signed. July 4th. So I feel like that is common knowledge. But I just want to hear from you. Throw in the comment section.
Yeah. Or
if you knew what, and it's okay, be honest. I just want to get an idea of those numbers.
Yeah, we just want to get an idea of those numbers.
But like, do you think it's common knowledge to know that 1776 is the founding of America? I think
it should be the common knowledge.
That's what I thought too, but maybe I'm wrong. People just don't know those things.
I mean, heck, if you didn't know it before, they said it in Hamilton. So like, I feel like it should be in the zeitgeist now that it was in Hamilton.
Right. Or one of my friends that was telling me he didn't know when it was, literally like walked to his drawer afterwards. He had a shirt that has 1776.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like all the patriotic merch says 1776. There's a famous book by David McClough called 1776.
Big day in history.
Yeah.
So when that day comes up, we will not be doing the podcast, but because it's the summer.
Another big day in history, though, 1900 in the United States.
Okay.
This is I would never know. There's so many things that happen in a week in history, and it's like hard to choose.
Right.
This one is a big one for some people here, though. I think some people will find this to be a controversial day in history.
Okay.
1900 on the 14th, actually, today that they were recording this. The U.S. currency goes on the gold standard, or goes off the gold standard after Congress passes the Currency Act. Which, controversial. Some people think that made our currency worthless.
Controversial, because I mean, it's just a very complicated topic, and I don't know. Economics is one of those things where it like kind of bends my mind every time I think about it, trying to understand like how money is worth things, but also not worth anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For sure.
Okay, cool.
Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty interesting. Also, one more thing, just one more with this.
Good. No, I think we're on a roll.
So many this week, I just couldn't pick.
But you have to put in the Ides of March, so you kind of like don't want to like give the other ones less space.
Exactly. But everyone knows 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue.
Right.
What a lot of people don't know is 1493. Columbus had to go home and go pee. Yeah, I made that rhyme up for you just right now. So was that
today or what?
So you can always remember it. Yeah, so actually to tomorrow.
Columbus went pee?
1493, Columbus gets home to Spain. And I have to imagine relieved himself because it's a tough ride.
Probably. Guess, yeah, you don't want to, like, you can be peeing off the boat in the middle of the ocean, but once you get into the Spanish harbor, it's kind of weird if you're like...
Exactly.
Just peeing off the boat as you sail in.
So probably went into the bathroom. I don't know what bathrooms they had in Spain back then. But
probably not great ones.
They thought they were... I mean, they must have had some kind of bathroom because they thought they were good enough to go and just conquer all the Indians. So they thought they were pretty good at life.
Well, we're actually going to rub up against that pretty much because we have... we end our day today in Spain in 1400.
Oh.
So we're almost getting
there.
Not
far off from when 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. 1493 Columbus goes home and goes pee.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's good to hear. Well, speaking of that, let's get right. What are we? Let's see how fast we can do this week.
Yeah. Well, we have. There's two stories I'm debating between which one I'm going to start with, but I'm going to start with this one just because it's more fun. It's the classic. So I'd always heard it like this. Like, what if for example, like, there's an evil magician and he comes into the earth, okay, and he's like, I'm gonna turn everything back to, like, I'm gonna take away all your technology, all your houses, all your air conditioning, all of college basketball, everything that's important.
Let's not get crazy.
And they're just every human is just going to be left on the earth, just in the exact place they are, without any technology or anything humans have made.
Can I just interject real quick?
Yeah.
I love that you chose for this story that you're like, an evil wizard did this. Instead of being like, the likely things like there's a nuclear holocaust or something. You're like, an evil wizard could come and send us back to the Stone Ages. Of all the things to send us back to the Stone Ages.
An evil wizard was what popped in my mind.
Okay. Well, yeah. No,
but how long would it take for humanity to get together and build an iPhone? Or I think I've also heard more recently, how long would it take humanity to get together and make marshmallows?
So that's a popular challenge. If you were alone for a year and you had all the ingredients for marshmallows, could you figure out how to make them?
I don't know if I could.
Yeah.
Do you think you could?
I think I could figure it out.
Yeah.
Just because I already actually know a little bit about marshmallows. And I'm not trying to flex that knowledge here,
on the average human.
But I know a little bit about them.
Okay.
But dude, that's a tough question because iPhone's complicated, man. You got to figure out, first of all, you got to learn how to mine. Then you got to learn how to mine, like,
whatever iPhones are made of.
Oh, silicon.
Okay.
And then you have to, like, learn how to imprint it onto chips. And then you have to get like all the way onto like a 2 nanometer process for
and that. The trick is because, like, there's tons of people on the earth who, like, know very, very well how to, like, make an iPhone, but, like, first of all, they're all, like, scattered around.
Yeah.
At least in Silicon Valley, they're scattered around.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if there's like one person that, like,
that's what I was gonna say. I don't know if there's one person that, like, could build the iPhone the whole way. Actually, I'm sure there's not one person.
There's no way there is, like, someone that knows not only how to build like a A18 processor chip, but also knows how to make a camera sensor.
Right.
Those are two very different things.
So, like, I don't know. That's just an interesting idea. And like I was, like, actually, Blake, you were alluding to earlier, I took a Cold War class in high school, and they always talked about, like, the nuclear fallout. Like, what would it be like if, like, the entire world just collapsed and all of humanity is kind of, like, crawling out of their hiding bunkers or whatever.
Yeah.
And they just got to rebuild society.
The best or their fridges, if you've seen Indiana Jones.
Oh, wait, what?
It's a term now in film. It's called nuking the fridge. It's like, at the beginning of one of the Indiana Jones films, there's a nuclear bomb that goes off, and he gets in a fridge right before it goes off, and the fridge, like, flies across, like,
dude, what?
Goes flying.
Which one is this?
And the, like, fridge rolls a bunch of times, and then he just jumps out. He's like, oh.
Is that where they got the idea, like,
perfectly okay?
Emmett gets in the double-decker couch in the Lego movie?
I guess so. But that's what they say is, like, you can't nuke the fridge. Like, you can't just, like, make your character survive something absolutely impossible right at, like, the first scene of the film. Because now the rest of the film's so boring. It's like, okay, he literally at the beginning got nuked and survived.
In a fridge.
In a fridge. So, like, he's not going to die.
Dang, it's just, I always thought, like, they would show me those movies over and over, like, knock it into your thick skull. Like, hey, if there's a nuclear fallout, this is what it's going to be like. It's going to be horrible. So don't make a stupid decision.
Just hop in a fridge, you're actually fine.
Yeah. But it's very counterintuitive to think of your civilization as, like, falling. Like, can you, like, it's just weird to think about, one day archaeologists are going to be digging around. Oh, here they uncovered, like, the Chicago Tower.
Right.
Or something like that. Very, very counterintuitive. But it happens all the time throughout history. And we're going to talk about another one of those times, which is after the Roman Empire fell. What is it like for humanity to start crawling out of, like, their holes or their bunkers where they've been hiding? Because think about, if you live in England in the 3rd century AD.
Mm-hmm.
You have access to, I mean, Roman hot baths. You have running water. You have sewer systems. You have irrigation. You have voting rights. You're a Roman citizen, most people. Awesome Roman armies to defend you. Big forts, big walls.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you fast forward like 200-300 years later, all of a sudden, like, you don't have any of that, right? It's just gone.
Yeah.
And it just is interesting to think about the different dynamic in your life of like before when you had that. I mean, I guess no one's living 300 years, but society can collapse really, really quickly. And so what was it like for these people right after Rome fell that lived in England, for example, to start rebuilding society like from scratch?
Yeah. Well, based off my perceptions, they stopped bathing.
Yeah, Romans are very, very clean. They took baths. But dude, actually in the Middle Ages in Europe, it was customary to not give your child a bath for the first 2 years of its life.
That's sick.
That's disgusting.
That's pretty cool, man.
There's another part, like I'm not going to go into any more detail about this, but I will just tell you, kind of like the swaddling clothes you're born in, you like stay in that for a really, really long time.
Oh.
So
Wow.
that's also freaking disgusting. Do you know how much blood is on
Dude,
the
people
brand newborn
wonder why
babies?
we think the English are gross. They came up with that, dude.
But some of the first I guess remnants of civilization have to deal after Rome leaves England, because at some point the Roman Emperor is like, look, I can't take care of you guys anymore. Like, you're on your own. You know, I don't have any troops to spend on you. I don't have any money to spend on you.
Right.
You kind of got to do your own thing. And eventually it goes so far that all of Western Rome has collapsed by the year 476 AD.
Oh, wow.
Right. And so after that year, all these people are just around and they're trying to figure out what to do, because the people don't just disappear. They're still there.
Right.
Right. So
they just don't have any of the infrastructure anymore.
Anything, yeah. And they're facing new threats now, because Rome kept a lot of the threats away. And the biggest threat they start to face is the Vikings. Or the Northmen, or if you don't have a lot of time, you can call them Norse.
The Northmen. Yeah.
Yep.
Those guys are scary, man.
Dude.
I read a book when I was a kid. Is like a historical fiction about the Vikings.
Yeah.
This chick gets captured, but then she like makes one of them fall in love with her. So then she like turns the Vikings. But then it's like kind of, because then she still has to pillage with them. So it's a little bit of a conundrum.
Dude, she actually sounds really, really similar to like one of the characters we're going to talk about here.
Oh, whoa.
She may have been based on her.
Possible inspiration, yeah.
Her name is, I'm always horrible at pronouncing it, so I'm just going to read it. Clotilde. Okay. Clotilde is, she's still very, very early on. She lives in the 500s AD. But she is kind of a mix between like a Gallic, like a Celt, and a Viking. Okay. And her husband's very, very powerful. Her husband's name is Clovis. Clovis the First. He's a very, very famous person in history. Yeah. And Clovis the First is the ruler of an empire called the Merovingian Empire. Okay, which is kind of the first like country that comes out of the dust after Rome falls in the west. Okay. And its headquarters are kind of like in northern Germany. Okay. And it's very like the people are very, very rough. Like the brutal. Think of Vikings, right? Just like we were talking about before. But Clotilde, she actually converts to Christianity, which is a big deal, because up there normally the Norse and the Vikings believe in these different pagan gods like Thor and Loki and Odin, who you may be familiar with. Yeah. Right. And these gods reveled in violence. Like they loved, like how you honored your gods was you fought in war and you killed people. Right. And so now imagine you have the queen of this empire, and she's Christian. Like, how do you think that dynamic works?
Yeah. It's a little bit weird. You kind of shook things up.
One of my favorite things that comes from this period of time is there will be statues left over from the Merovingian Empire of Jesus with like an axe and a shield.
Okay, so they adapted. They're doing their best, man. They're trying to figure it out.
Like, yeah. Yep.
It's a tough stitch to be thrown into, and they're really getting it after it, you know?
Well, also, and I think there was one of the other things that was hard for them was like the whole point of why Thor is so awesome is because you can't kill him. Like he can't die. He wins every battle because he can't die. And the whole point of Jesus is that he died. And so you're kind of like, she's like, well, check out my God. And they're like, are you for real? Like the whole point is that he died.
Our guy never did that. Yeah. He's way cooler.
And so eventually she convinces like Clovis, who may be like one of the most rough, tumble, like masculine people in all of history to convert to Christianity as well.
Mm.
And so he'll get these all sorts of like Jesus with axe tattoos or
Sick.
things like that.
Listen, man, you gotta make it work.
Yep. But Christianity, point being, Christianity is actually alive and well in the West, even after Rome falls.
Okay.
These guys are not really subservient to the Pope yet, because as you can tell, they're a little bit different breed of Christian than most of your average Christians.
The Pope might not like what they're doing over there.
Yeah. But this empire does last for a little while, and actually, I don't know if you can keep this in, but actually, no, I won't say that. I'll skip that. Anyway, the Merovingian Empire starts to decline, and instead, like a different ruling family starts to take over this empire, but they have a different name, so we're going to change the name of the empire from the Merovingian Empire to a name very similar, the Carolingian Empire.
Oh,
So make sure you don't get those confused.
those are easy to keep straight. No one would get them confused.
No one would ever get those confused. The Merovingian and the Carolingian Empire. Okay. The founder of, well, you could say this guy, or you could say his son is the founder, but a guy that a lot of people refer to as the founder of the Carolingian Empire is known by a couple, well, he's known as Charles Martel.
Oh, okay.
Okay. He has one of the most awesome nicknames ever. His nickname is the Hammer.
Ooh,
So close.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The hammer's pretty cool.
The Hammer is a cool nickname.
Yeah.
And this is really, really important because if we pan over to the Middle East at this time, there's a couple dynasties or caliphates of Islamic peoples that have been conquering all over. One of these is called the Moors Caliphate, and they are going to conquer much of Africa, like northern Africa, where Carthage used to be. So if you look on a map, the northern strip of Africa that borders the Mediterranean is all conquered by this Islamic Caliphate. They actually jump over the Gates of Hercules or the Strait of Gibraltar, which means they're going into Spain now.
Right. So they've gone along the bottom of Africa. Now they're going up to Europe.
Yep. So they start conquering Spain, converting a lot of the people, raiding, pillaging, as they do. And not just because they're Islamic Caliphate. Raiding and pillaging is an everybody thing. But they get all the way up to a place in southern France called Tours. And France is not a country yet, so don't get that confused.
Tours de France?
If you're wondering, no, I think that's Tour because that's like you still tour.
No, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm just saying.
Remember the episode of Phineas and Ferb when his dad does it?
I've never seen Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind. If you know that,
Shout out.
shout out to you.
Yeah. Like us on Instagram.
If we did have an Instagram.
We don't have an Instagram.
Like us on Venmo.
Yeah. And if you don't know how to do that, you just send money. That's how you like. You don't know.
We'll just know you liked us.
And we'll know. Then we'll know.
Yeah. But they go all the way up to a place in southern France called Tours. This is the year 732 AD. And at this point, it's the Umayyad Caliphate that's going to fight against the people who are already in France. And if you remember, it's the Carolingian Empire.
Right.
So the Merovingian Empire was a lot smaller. It was only like in northern Germany. The Carolingian Empire is going to be in between Germany and France, more in France than in Germany, but in that general area. And so the Muslims are coming, and they just kind of run up against the Charles the Hammer, right? Charles Martel.
Which makes you wonder about this guy's finesse if his nickname is the Hammer.
And this is seen as one of the most, I don't know if greatest is the word, but influential battles of all of history. Historians don't like to play the what if games, but a lot of historians do believe that if the Islamic Caliphate had defeated Charles Martel at the Battle of Tours, then all of Europe would have become Muslim. Because Europe is in a dark age because Rome just collapsed.
Right.
Rome was by far the most powerful empire in the world. Once Rome collapses, you got a lot of second-rate powers that now have no one to eat them on the food chain.
Right.
Right, like this Islamic Caliphate. And so all of the territories in Europe would have been conquered by this Islamic Caliphate, and a lot of the people in Europe would have been Muslim. And think about how different that would make our world today, right?
Because all of Europe is Christian.
Right. So Charles Martel, the Hammer, defeats the Muslims at the Battle of Tours. And this is kind of like the Muslim stopping point. They're not going to go any further into Europe than Tours.
Okay.
But you can kind of see that if you look at like culture, like if you look at Spanish culture, there is a little bit of like Islamic heritage left over, right? And of course, it's not going to last for long because there's going to be a lot of wars in between then and now.
Yeah.
Especially religious conflicts.
Back then. Europe was a...
Man, we haven't had a war since the last time we did it. So we should probably do it again.
So, I ain't had a war in the last 30 minutes, so I say yup.
I'm gonna hit it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why the borders in Europe look like how they do.
Charles Martel's son, he is one of the greatest forgotten figures in history because Charles Martel and then Charles Martel's grandson are two very, very big people on the world stage. And then Charles Martel's son in his own right is a very, very influential person as well, but I think he often gets hidden between these two people. It's kind of another one of like the Philip II stories with Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
Pippin is his name. Pippin the Short. He's a very, very...
Sounds like a Lord of the Rings dwarf.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe the short guy that's named Pippin.
Oh, yeah.
In Lord of the Rings.
Oh, hey.
Could be him too. But Pippin the Short starts having these northern European areas ally with the Pope. And this is a big deal because if you think back to Clovis, he was Christian, yeah, but he wasn't going to listen to what the Pope had to say. Right. He's building statues of Jesus with an axe.
No, yeah, frick the Pope, dude. I'm doing my own thing over here.
And so Pippin the Short, he's going to form an alliance with the Pope.
Oh.
Okay, and so they're going to start being a little bit of buddy-buddy.
Yeah.
Okay. And in return, and the Pope kind of says, like, not officially, but the Pope is kind of also, like, going to give him some extra leverage in just religious affairs.
Okay.
In return for Pippin the Short and his massive Carolingian Empire protecting the Papal States, which the Papal States, if you don't know, it's a bunch of tiny city-states that are left over in Italy. Because Italy was the center of the Roman Empire.
Right.
The capital being Rome. After Rome fell, all these cities kind of have their own government.
Okay.
And they're called the Papal States.
Because they're already so big and kind of powerful, they just kind of make their own thing.
Yeah, they're doing their own stuff.
It's like if America fell, like New York, Chicago would probably kind of do their own thing.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And the Pope is still the Bishop of Rome, right? So the Pope's living in Rome. And so Pippin the Short is the first one to kind of create a friendship with the Pope. And it's going to be expanded on with his son. Now, his son is probably the most influential and important person we're going to talk about this entire chapter.
Okay.
And probably the most influential and important person in Europe from about 500 AD up to about 1000 AD. Okay. So very, very influential. He is known as two different names, and you got to be careful because if you use one name, the French will get mad at you. Use the other name, the Germans will get mad at you.
All right. So keep this in mind for your study abroad.
In Germany, he's known as Charles the Great. In France, he's known as Charlemagne.
Okay.
You may have heard one or both of those names.
Yeah.
But they refer to the same person. So this is the Pippin the Short's son and Charles Martel's grandson. Okay. So if you've been following along with the history, he is going to take charge of the Carolingian Empire. Okay. And he is going to create the infrastructure that they lost when Rome fell. Rebuild all those things.
Is you think Chalamet, like Timothy Chalamet, is like a derivative of Charlemagne?
I wonder. Now that I think about it, like every time I think of Charlemagne in my mind, I think I've subconsciously been imagining like Timothy Chalamet.
Doesn't he play Charlemagne in the movie The King?
Dude, if he does, that's actually crazy.
Let me check real quick.
Did you see they dropped the cast for Odysseus? Or the Odyssey?
Yeah, isn't it like Brad or Matt Damon and
all the normal people?
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks cool. Looks really cool. I'm excited.
Timothy Chalamet, aka Timothy Chalamet, is what he's also known as, according to IMDb.
It's like I know you probably don't do this, but like for any of you basketball fans out there, I always am like looking up NBA players to look at their stats, and always has like nicknames by it. And so it'll be like LeBron, like his nicknames will be like the kid from Akron or the King, ones everyone knows, and it also have random nicknames like the sewer cleaner or something like that. I'm like, I've never heard that.
Oh, never mind. He plays Henry V in The King.
Okay. Similar, I'm sure Henry V looked at Charlemagne for example of how to do things good.
They probably got along.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they didn't live at the same time. But
oh well, yeah, but they would maybe.
They probably would have gotten along.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yep.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. That's McDonald's. But welcome to the Query Corner, where today we're querying one corner, and this is my query for this corner. Consequently, my question for this Query Corner is clever. Yes. So, Rome fell.
Indeed.
Can you agree to that?
Unfortunately.
Yes. Okay. So, Rome fell. My question to you, Rome seemed to be pretty civilized.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And a lot of times when you have civilization, very civilized and refined, there's a lot more education going on.
Yes.
So with Rome falling, in Rome, what was like the literacy rate like? And then after Rome fell, did that just kind of drop off and people stopped being educated? Or what happened there?
It's a good question. Yeah. It depends on how important literacy is to you, your specific time in your culture in Rome, because if you remember, Rome covers all the land of the entire Mediterranean, right?
It's a lot of stuff.
So if you're in England, you're Roman. If you're an Egyptian, you're Roman, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very like vast differences. Generally, the closer you are to the city of Rome, the more literate people are going to be.
Okay.
Okay. It's kind of like America, right?
Mhm.
The closer you are to a big city, generally more literate people are going to be. Right?
Whoa, controversial take.
Oh, sorry.
But
Sorry if that was controversial.
sometimes true.
In my experience, that's how it's been. And so in Rome, a lot of people were literate. It's going to be definitely a spike in time in terms of literacy rates.
Mm-hmm.
And also just like that area of the world puts a big importance on literacy. Like
Right.
that's why we study the Greeks and the Romans so much, is because they wrote about themselves,
Mm.
right? And so like I can't, like, even though you might be cool if you live in Indonesia, like
Right.
I can't read about you because you didn't write anything.
You write nothing.
Right. After Rome falls, though, we get another drop in literacy rates, an extreme drop. So basically, like I was saying, quality of life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if your quality of life sucks, usually you're not worried about, like, well, let me find out how to read and write.
Oh, yeah. You're
Usually-
not like, oh, Shakespeare dropped a new work.
Uh-huh. But some people would get tutored.
Mm.
And one of these people was Charlemagne, like we talked about, one of the greatest figures in all history.
Mm.
And Charlemagne did actually love to read, so much so he kept his favorite book, The City of God, under his pillow when he slept.
That's kind of cute.
He really liked it.
That is kind of cute.
So
Charlemagne was like, here in my garage with my new Lamborghini. You know what's better than money?
I haven't heard that in so long. Holy
Knowledge. Just goes to show you, if you want to be a great leader, business or otherwise, or just a king, you should read.
Make sure you read
Be like Charlemagne. Keep your little book under your pillow.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for coming to this week's Query Corner and coming on inside and into the coziness of our corner.
Thank you.
Bye.
Charlemagne is going to rebuild all the infrastructure. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not going to be as good as Rome. You literally, like, I can't emphasize this enough. You're not going to get things really as good as Rome up until the Industrial Revolution, and a lot of times even past the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, dude. I just
How recently we like got back to Rome level.
yeah. I just can't, like, dude.
How
I feel-
close was Rome to just like building steam engines?
There's been a lot of papers written on that, and it looks like remarkably close.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they could have just like had iPhones by the
Like
time.
that. That's a common question in like history. There's tons of papers written about, like, it's just one of like the basics. Like in basketball, if you're like looking to run an offense, like the pick and roll is the most basic play.
Mhm.
If you're looking to write a history paper, one of the history papers you write is how close was Rome to having an industrial revolution.
Dang. That's
So,
wild to think about.
yeah. And it's just crazy to think about, like, I don't know, I just think about people living in Britain when Rome sent them the Roman emperor sent them the letter that was like, hey, you folks are on your own, like, I got to defend my people.
Mhm.
Like, dude, war just screws everything up for everybody.
Yeah. They're like, we don't know how to run these baths.
Yeah.
We need you guys to run the baths. Yep.
Crazy. But he's going to rebuild infrastructure as best he can. And this is the first time quality of life isn't going to be horrid. It's still going to be
Mhm.
bad, but it's not like as horrid as it was before, because
Yeah.
Charlemagne has all these things in place. Another big thing he does is he expands his father's alliance with the Pope. Right?
Okay.
So Pippin the Short and the Pope were friends. One day, Charlemagne gets invited over to have a feast with the Pope,
Mm-hmm.
and the Pope goes, "Surprise, you're the Roman emperor." Charlemagne. And this confuses Charlemagne a little bit because, one, there's no Rome anymore. And also he's like, so remind me what country you're in charge of again, Pope?
Dang.
The Pope's like, next question.
Next. He's just really like seizing power
Yep.
for no reason. Just kind of like, yeah, I can do this now.
Yep. And that's going to lead to a big controversy we'll hit on in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But the big point behind this, I mean, and Charlemagne accepts this. He's
Mhm.
shocked, but he does accept it. So he calls himself Roman Emperor, or Emperor of the Romans.
Mm-hmm.
And he is very, very like linked up with he's very in step with the Pope. There is no separation of church and state, really.
Mm.
And this allows the Pope to also have the loyalty of a lot of these subjects.
Mm.
And so much later, because we talked about this last week, but we backtracked a lot in the podcast. If you remember last week, the Pope needed to call a bunch of crusaders together to help him.
Yeah.
This is how he's able to do that.
He has all this power
Right.
from just deciding he can elect emperors.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you should try more often in your life. You'd be surprised what you can get away with if you're just like, I'm going to just do this now.
You tell someone they're an emperor, like, I mean, if the Pope told me I was a Roman emperor,
Mhm.
there's no way I'm refusing that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes,
like,
sir.
yeah, I am.
Yes, sir.
Anything you want. But the Pope, because of this, has Charlemagne's protection, which means you have the protection of the entire Carolingian Empire.
Right.
So the Pope basically has access to troops for all intents and purposes.
Mm-hmm.
The Carolingian Empire is going to fall much later on in history, but still prior to the Crusades. So by the time of the Crusades, when the Pope needs help, the Carolingian Empire doesn't exist anymore. But all the areas that were governed by the Carolingian Empire, which was most of Northern and Central Europe,
Mm-hmm.
were loyal to the Pope because they were loyal to Charlemagne.
Right.
Right? Because Charlemagne connected their Christianity with the Pope's Christianity.
Okay.
Right?
Big network effect.
Mm-hmm. Big network effect. Exactly. This also creates something called the investiture controversy, which we hinted at a little bit before, but it's like, who has the authority to do what?
Mm.
And the Pope's like, well, I have the authority to choose like the king
Mhm.
and the emperor and whatever I want to. And Charlemagne's like, no, I actually have power over you, so I should have power to choose the next Pope.
Mm.
So they're both like, not only can I choose who succeeds me, but I also can choose who succeeds you.
Right.
And that's a lot of beef. Eventually, in one of the like uncommon things in history, they reach a compromise where everyone's like, let's just do our own thing, which that's kind of rare. Usually it's like, I'm just going to do your thing and my
own
thing.
thing. Yeah.
So the investiture controversy ends with only the church is able to appoint clergy, and only the Carolingian Empire is able to choose who the next emperor is going to be.
Okay.
But in Charlemagne's empire, there's a lot of just developments, like we talked about, infrastructure. And if you don't know what infrastructure means, that's like we're going to start building aqueducts again so you can have fresh water.
Mm.
We're going to start using a common currency so everyone can buy food from each other. We're going to start having like
Trade roads?
Yeah, trade roads, all those things.
Mm.
Exactly. The Christian church evolves too. There's two different kinds of clergy that the Christian church has, and we could name a lot of these saints, but I find awesome emperors like Charlemagne more interesting than different saints, so we're going to talk about them instead. But the two types of clergy we're going to talk about are the regular clergy and the secular clergy.
Okay.
So the secular clergy is like your average priest or cardinal
Mhm.
or bishop that you would think of in the Catholic Church. And by the way, I know there's a split that we talked about last week with the iconoclasm and the Great Schism.
Mm-hmm.
That was all in the East, in Byzantium and in Constantinople. We're only talking about the West, so this is all Catholic stuff.
Okay.
We haven't touched on Eastern Christianity at all. But the average bishop, the Pope is part of this, your average cardinal, they're all going to be secular clergy. And they're going to actually live among the people. Just like you go down the street and like, oh, there's the Pope's house,
Okay.
right? Or, oh, there is the cardinal's house.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different kind of clergy called the regular clergy. The regular clergy is this development of the idea of a monk.
Mm.
So a monk lives in a monastery, secluded from everybody else, and his job is like to translate the Bible,
Mm.
right? Or to, I guess, rewrite the Bible, because you don't just have a copy machine. You can copy the Bible a bunch, right?
Right.
Or just study theology.
Mm-hmm.
So those are your two main types of clergy that are going to start popping up under these Carolingian and Merovingian empires.
Okay.
Once Charlemagne dies, it's kind of bad news for most of Europe.
Mm.
It ushers in what we call a feudal age.
Oh.
Do you know what a feudal age would be?
The
Just guess.
Feudal age, I'd assume, would be under the feudal system,
Right.
which is where you have lords and the serfs, and they all are kind of just servants to the lords.
Exactly, yeah. So you're going to have kings who have underneath them, you're going to have lords who underneath them, you're going to have vassals, and underneath them, you're going to have peasants.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of there being like a massive Carolingian empire,
Mhm.
the Carolingian empire, well, I'll tell you exactly what happens basically in something that's just a pattern in all of history. Once Charlemagne dies, all three of his sons think that they should be in charge of the empire. And so it gets split, and then it gets split more, and then split more.
Classic issue.
Until instead you have a king, but the king is only a king of like a few different manors, and each manor has is kind of like its own little village.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be like a king of like 5 little villages, and each little village has their own lord. And each lord has their own vassals, which means inside the village you have different houses or farms you can go on, and each vassal will have like peasants that are subservient to them. They're going to work on their farms, right? And so instead of having a manor.
This is about the era that you get the Ranger's Apprentice book series, if you read those as a kid,
Is that the?
which I was a fan of.
No, that I was thinking of the false king. You read that one?
I haven't read that one, though.
The one, maybe it's not called that. It's this dude. It's every single book written about this time period. It's where some king is just a peasant in a town. And he's a kid and he doesn't know he's the king, and then surprise, he's the king.
Well, that's not what the Ranger's Apprentice is about, but that's pretty
Okay.
cool.
Yeah,
It's about a ranger and his apprentice.
Dude, that will. Dang.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to
aptly
spoil
aptly
it.
titled.
Yeah, they got it right on that one.
But yeah, the feudal system. So if you remember, a manor is what we're talking about. A manor means just like a tiny little village. You're gonna have the big castle or the palace. It's like a Monty Python, if you've seen that kind of deal. That's what's going on over here.
Yeah.
So quality of life is horrible because you don't have a big empire to run everything.
Right.
And I was just thinking about this today. This is not meant to be like a political stance or anything, but having a government is really, really nice.
Yeah.
And I don't think we give them enough credit some of the time.
Yeah.
You know, like having Charlemagne there was really, really great for these people because they had a universal currency and they could go buy things.
Yeah.
And the government helped organize it so everybody had like an okay quality of life.
Right.
You know, and so sometimes having a government is hard and like annoying, but at least if you look back in history, generally, it seems like it's a pretty good thing. And when you lose your big governments like Charlemagne, a lot of things start to collapse and fall apart, and the quality of life is just horrible for these people at this time.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So, and this is how Europe is going to exist up until another big turning point in all of history. This is the year 1066, and there's another famous history paper you can write is the What Ifs of 1066.
Right.
It's like what happened if something different went down here, but and even there's this big battle goes a different way because one of the armies decides to not fight because there's like it rains that day, and they lose. And if they had fought earlier, they probably would have won, right? So it's like, what if it didn't rain? Like history would be totally different. But this is basically the creation of England.
Oh.
In 1066, right? And so if the war had went differently, we might not even have England.
Yeah.
Right. And for all you the sun never sets on the British Empire fans, you know, England becomes a pretty big deal in the future. And
they
still
do
to this day.
a lot of things where they go to places and they say, this is ours now.
Yep. And then they also saved the world from Germany twice.
Yeah.
So shout out to them.
Shout out that.
Shout out to good things they did. Not the bad things they did.
Not the bad. There's some both, you know?
That's how it goes with most countries.
Yeah. Germany, mostly bad things, actually, when you look at the history, unfortunately.
Except the 2014 World Cup team. Is that when they won?
I don't really care about that, but that's good for them.
Except that was a good team. I remember because I didn't take German. I took Latin in middle school when that was going down, and all my friends took German, and they were like, they got brownies because Germany won the World Cup.
Oh, sick.
And I was like, and they were like, when's your country going to win the World Cup? And I was like, I took Latin,
well,
so.
Rome is not going to win the World Cup. So.
But in this battle, there's a guy, dude, and this is what I was excited to talk to you about because the names are crazy.
Oh, sick.
Like, you know, usually like in China, you get Qi Xing Huangdi or whatever. Dude, the names and mostly the titles of these people are great, okay?
Yeah.
So there's the leader of England, and his name is Edward the Confessor.
Oh, sick.
So I just kind of wonder just speculate on what was going on in
Edward
his
the Confessor.
Edward the Confessor is in charge of England, and when he dies, he has two people that claim the right to the throne. One of them name is Harold.
That's all.
The other one is my favorite name of this time period, William the Bastard.
Oh, sick. If you're wondering how he came to be,
you don't have to wonder anymore.
Yeah.
And William the Bastard and Harold go to war over who's going to control England. And this is when the big like weather happens, and so they don't attack for an extra day, and so William can get some more troops together, and so William the Bastard defeats Harold. I think his last name might be Harold Godwinson, but defeats Harold Godwinson in the Battle of Hastings in 1066.
Yep.
And William the Bastard, rightly so, changes his name to William the Conqueror. So
he's all, this is a good opportunity for a rebrand.
Yep. So you have William the Conqueror, and he becomes the King of England.
Okay.
Right. And around this time is where you get like the legend of King Arthur and all that stuff going on. But William the Conqueror conquers England. After this, you're going to have, well, let me talk about the troops you have really quick. The troops you have in this war are called Huscarls. And they're very like Norman troops. They're kind of like a mix of Vikings and just your normal troops. I don't know.
Yeah. Vikings and regular.
Yeah. But Huscarls are really cool. What they do, and there's a lot of different kinds of them, but the major one that fought at the Battle of Hastings would have this massive axe, like a huge axe that was known to be able to, like, if you had a cow right there, in one swing, the axe would chop cleanly through the cow.
Whoa.
So
that's a big axe.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that happening.
No.
Like, that just seems like there's parts of like physics and stuff that like wouldn't let that happen.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if that's real, but that's cool. If it's real.
If it's real, that's
if true,
cool.
that's big.
Yeah, these Huscarls are the kinds of troops that are fighting. Later, shortly after this time, you're going to get the 100 Years' War.
Mm-hmm.
The 100 Years' War is when there's a few like Norman and Anglo-Saxon settlements,
Mm-hmm.
which those would be English,
Right.
Settlements in northern France in the area of Normandy.
Okay.
And the
Classic.
the 100 Years' War is basically when France is able to kick them out with the help of major figures like Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc is very, very instrumental in kicking those Norman figures out, or those Norman troops out, the Norman settlers out, kicking them back to England and saying, okay, now this area is French only.
Right.
So this is kind of when you get the start of these two countries that are going to be powers for the rest of time up until today, France and England.
Right.
Right, in this period, coming out of the feudal period. And so once, just like I was talking about earlier, once you get a government,
Mm-hmm.
things are just better, man.
Yeah.
Just works out like that.
Gross.
Also coming out of this, you get the Magna Carta,
Mm.
which is important in 1215. The Magna Carta is the first, Western. It's very revolutionary for its time period because it takes rights away from the king.
Mm.
Right.
Which is unheard of.
Unheard of at the time, right?
You don't take rights away from the king. He's the king.
Mm-hmm. But because of a sticky situation the King of England was caught in, he's forced to sign this thing by the barons, which creates something called the Parliament. And Parliament is just a group of elites or nobles that can vote on things. Not everything, just a few things.
Right.
But point is, king can't just do whatever he wants now. So
Classic.
also during this time, you have what's called the Western Schism. Interesting schism. Basically, there's a new pope gets elected, except everyone hates him. No one likes this guy. And so everyone gets together and says, like, well, let's just elect a new pope. And so they elect a new pope. Turns out first pope didn't want to relinquish control.
Oh.
So now there's two popes.
Okay.
And this is really bad for everybody. And so they're like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? We have two popes now. They say, well, let's gather together. And instead, we'll just say both those popes aren't real popes, and we'll elect a new pope.
Oh, doing the same thing again will surely fix the problem this time.
And so they elect a new pope. So now there's three popes.
Uh-oh.
And so they're like, they all actually excommunicate each other.
Oh, sick.
So no one knows who the true pope is.
Battle of the Popes.
Who's the one true pope?
Dang.
We don't know who it is.
Pope battle.
Yep.
That's sick.
Eventually, they're able to figure it out, and they just have one pope. But for a while, there's three
For a
popes
little bit,
going
there's
on.
three. That's
Yep.
cool, man.
On some worse news, shortly before the Western Schism, you have the Black Death.
Oh,
Gross.
bummer.
I don't like to spend a lot of time on that.
Yeah, big bummer.
Yep.
Black Death.
We have some friends, though, that do like to talk about gross things that may be watching a live audience right now. So
Yeah.
if they were here, they would talk about it.
Yeah.
And then I just want to finish off by talking about the Reconquista has been going on the whole time. If you don't know that, that's Crusades, but in the West version.
Oh.
So that's Crusades in Spain. And basically, they're just kicking all the Muslims out of Spain.
The Spanish Inquisition.
Yep. So now it can just be Christian only.
There you go. Just how Spain likes it.
Just how Spain likes it. That's where we're going to end.
Yeah.
So quick review, just to go over everything. Make sure you understand that we got during Charlemagne's reign, we got the two different kinds of clergies, the secular clergy and the regular clergy.
Yep.
That's big. Also, the Western Schism, all the popes excommunicating each other.
Boom, 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 boom.
Black Plague, making life pretty horrible for everybody.
Tough break.
Always important to know about Clovis and Merovingian Empire. Then the transition to the Carolingian Empire with Charles the Great, Charles Martel, Pippin the Short,
Yep.
and then Charlemagne or Charles the Great. And then afterwards you got the feudal breakdown, right?
Yeah.
Breakdown of the empire into all these feudal states.
Yep.
So should be good. Hopefully you got all that information.
Yep. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Just doing
It's a sick outro.
the
actually.
Atlantic Coast accent. You know? Anyway. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow, meow,
I'm just
meow.
smoldering.
Meow, meow, meow.
Oh, you do it.
There you go.